For decades, the concept of time travel has spanned through sci-fi, fantasy, mystery, and history, spawning countless movies, TV shows, and books. On November 8, 2011, Stephen King's 49th novel, entitled 11/22/63, was released. An epic story of historical fiction based around the assassination of President John F. Kennedy. Since its release, the novel has garnered high critical praise, not only for being one of Stephen King's best novels, but for also being one of the greatest time travel stories written in the modern day. With all that said, we will discuss why I think you should read 11/22/63. It's 11/22/23, and I couldn't pick a better time to celebrate and discuss Stephen King's masterpiece, 11/22/63. This novel was a catalyst in reigniting my long dormant love for reading. It all started in the winter of 2022. I'm a huge fan of Stanley Kubrick's adaptation of The Shining, and I figured that I should maybe check out the book to compare the differences and see why there's such a huge divide between fans of the book and film. I may do a separate video about this one day. I was also in the mood to read a horror novel. So I went to the Stephen King section of my local library and to my dismay saw no copies of The Shining in sight. I wasn't very familiar with Stephen King's catalog at the time, aside from his iconic titles like Misery and Pet Sematary, but not even those books were available. What I did see were titles such as Dolores Claiborne, Doohickey, and Insomnia, stuff I never heard of. What did catch my attention was this huge book with a crazy newspaper cover featuring JFK. I knew nothing of this story, but was well aware of how critically acclaimed it was. I honestly assumed it was just Stephen King giving his take on the assassination conspiracy. Not wanting to leave the library empty-handed, I figured I'd take it home and read a few pages. I have the attention span of a goldfish and told myself there was no way in hell I'm finishing this cinder block of a book. I also never read a Stephen King novel before, so I was interested in seeing what his writing style was like, despite this not being a horror novel. What I experienced later on that evening would hit me like a lightning bolt on a clock tower. First few pages in, and I found it intriguing. Next thing I knew, I was over 100 pages in. I'm a huge sucker for time travel stories and never read anything this engaging since The Time Machine by H.G. Wells, which was my favorite book. What I enjoy most about time travel stories is observing how present-day characters interact and react to environments of the past. 11/22/63 gave me my fill of that. Seeing our main protagonist, Jake Epping, go through normal slice-of-life stuff in the late 50s was a complete joy. Anything from drinking a root beer float to driving a car from that era was just fascinating. It was like taking a vacation to escape all the crap we deal with now. From there, the book just kept moving in directions I wasn't expecting. There's a side quest that brought in some of the horror elements I was craving. We also see some Easter eggs and tie-ins from some of King's most iconic work, including an infamous town that's far from merry. The real heart of the story is when Jake meets his love interest in a woman named Sadie. The relationship is the real highlight and driving force of the story. I'm not into romance books, but my eyes were clinging to these pages, like Leonardo DiCaprio and a piece of boat debris. There's some steamy moments as well. I know I'll never think of Pound Cake the same way again. The historical elements were just a cherry on the sundae. You can tell Stephen King spent decades researching all the people and events that led to the JFK assassination. How he infuses all this into the story and multiverse is brilliant. I'd probably still love this book if it had nothing to do with JFK assassination. Everything in this novel is so carefully plotted and executed that I couldn't recall a single page, chapter, or character that was wasted. Every single element served its purpose. I've read several Stephen King books ever since, and nothing has topped this experience. Not only is this my favorite Stephen King book, but it's my favorite book of all time. I have been a constant reader ever since, and started the BookTube channel a few months after. How's that for impact? In my opinion, 11/22/63 is the magnum opus of Stephen King's magnum opuses. How is that even possible? I rate 11/22/63 5 stars, 5 bookmarks, 2 thumbs ups, and a perfect 10. If you enjoyed this content, please hit that like and subscribe, and I'll catch you guys on the next page.